Welcome to the first lesson in Module 1, Understanding Light and Color. And in this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at how the eye works. All right. And in order to do this, I'm going to just do a small little illustration here of the side view of our eyeball and kind of draw in the photoreceptor sections here at the back as they go into the brain. And we're kind of going to do some theory, and this will actually be so useful to you because you'll understand why we choose one particular thing to focus on heavily in our art, which is value, over another thing, which is color. All right. And so in your eyeball, as light enters, it hits a bunch of photoreceptors that are split into two types. So it probably looks something like that in the eyeball, right? It's little spiky ones. And then there's kind of little round masses as well. There's all these little spiky ones, all these little round masses. Probably looks like that from the side view. And effectively, we have, I'm going to just kind of simplify it here. We have rods that receive light information. And then we also have cones that receive light information. All right, the rods and the cones, and these are very, very important in terms of how we understand how we see. All right, and so inside the surface, when we're looking directly into the eye, there's kind of tons and tons and tons. I probably couldn't draw them fast enough. There are tons and tons of rods, about 120 million rods in the eye. In fact, let's write that down there, 120 million rods. And then there are about 6 million cones, all right? In the average human eye, that's probably the distribution. And the rods are what detect brightness, right? Brightness and darkness. Okay, so we'll just indicate it like this, darkness to brightness, right? So the rods detect brightness, and the cones pick up color. Right. And you can see just by the split here of the 120 million to 6 million that a lot of our 3D vision is due to the rods, because the rods can see the difference between somewhere that is lit and somewhere that is not lit, right? Can see the depths of the shadows and the brightest highlights. And the rods are doing the heavy lifting in terms of our understanding of form. All right. Whereas the cones, they're primarily there to pick up color. Now, from a scientific point of view, if I'm not mistaken, the cones also can detect degrees of brightness in a particular way, but the heavy duty lifting of that is the rods. And the cones have three types of receptor cones, right? You have the blue receptor cones and the red receptor cones, and then you also have the green receptor cones. And now bear with me, because I know that you've signed up for a course on how to color and paint your work. But of course, this is really pivotal. And believe me, this will be very, very useful to you and very, very helpful to you. So bear with me as we go through this, but don't worry, it's not very long and it's not very complex. And I'm also extremely simplifying the process as well here. All right, so this is what's happening in our eyes in terms of the cones. I actually want to just turn it like this. And perhaps you've seen these colors before. Maybe you've seen them on your TV, or you understand them in terms of pixels on LCD displays, that the individual pixels of your screen is made up of one little red little light and one little blue light and one green light. And these three receptors combined is how we get our full spectrum of color, is how we see our full spectrum of color. But what's quite crazy, what's quite really interesting about this is that your brain kind of mixes the blue and the green, or should I say rather that you can detect all the things in between the blue and the green, right, as the blue and the green mix. And you can detect all the things between the green and the red as the green and the red mix. So you can imagine, green, going into red, you're getting sort of browns, you're getting yellows and things like that, and then it's going into red. And then from the blue, you're getting your sort of your cyans going into your lime greens, your turquoises, and that as you go into the green. However, your brain doesn't link, these particular receptors, do not link to each other. Blue and red, they do not link. And so your brain just makes up the color in between. All right, and it's quite crazy, I know. So technically, the made-up color would be magenta. That's sort of the base value of it. It's just made up in your brain, which means your magenta and my magenta could be completely different, and we would never know, because, you know, whatever I call magenta is magenta, or you're sort of really like pinky purples, you might call it that too, but it could be an actually completely different color to you. All right. But nevertheless, it's a bit of a crazy thought, but this is how we get our spectrum of color, and also our color wheel is derived from the system of red, green, and blue. And these are what we would want to really call the true primaries. Some people would argue that the true primaries are cyan, magenta, and yellow. And that's more of a technical debate on the subject, but really just keeping things basic. Red, blue, and green are our primaries, and it's also how our computer screens and our cell phone screens display the full spectrum of color to us by using RGB setups in the pixel structure. And that's kind of how we see. Once again, the big thing we want to take away from this, the very, very big thing, is just how pivotal rods are, right? And just how important the value information is, right? The brightness information is for how we see, right? We primarily discerning three-dimensionality and form in terms of the light receptor part of it, in terms of light, via the rods, via the brightness, or via the value. And so value to us as artists is absolutely foundational. It's absolutely core. And you will see how this ties in very, very heavily to professional level coloring and professional level character painting. Value is exceptionally important. Of course, color plays a big role too, but the split of importance is something like 90% important value, 10% important color, because color is really, of course, there's multiple uses of it, but color can really lead to mood, but value leads to true understanding of the forms. All right. That's it for this lesson. Let's move on to the next lesson. I'll see you there.